So today we're going to go over continuous versus discrete variables. So when we're working with variables, they're always classified into two main types, which is our continuous and discrete. So the first thing we're going to start with is our continuous variables. So the thing with continuous variables is they can take on any value within a given range. So for example, if you think of a variable that can be measured with infinite precision. For example, the height of a person, because if somebody is 1.75 meters tall, they could also be someone that is 1.83 meters tall. So we have the decimal and the exact measurement. And as well as we can measure it in centimeters or millimeters. So another thing that we are doing in continuous is we could do temperature. So for example, we would have our temperature as 23.5 degrees Celsius, or we could make it even more precise with 23.55 degrees Celsius. So the way continuous variables works is it can be any value along a range. So it's not going to be stuck to just our regular numbers, our regular numbers of 1, 2, 3, we'll have our decimals, which means that we're mostly working with measurements or temperatures and things like that. And another thing to look out for with continuous variables is they can be divided into smaller units. So for example, with our 1.75 meters tall, this could be changed to 175 centimeters or 1,750 millimeters. Well, on the other hand, with discrete data, what this means is discrete will only be exact numbers. So this will be when we're counting, not measuring something. So for example, we'll have 25 students in a class. It's impossible for us to have 25.5. So whenever we have an exact number, that's when we're going to be using discrete numbers. So it's mainly for when we are counting. While continuous is measurements. So another example here was if you're looking at the street, you might be able to count 15 cars, but you aren't able to count 15.3 cars. So discrete variables are often represented with whole numbers, and there's a distinct gap between each value. So unlike continuous variables, you can't have a value that falls between two discrete values. So for example, when we have our continuous, we might have it as 23.5 degrees Celsius, and we have it as 23.6 degrees Celsius. But with continuous, we can always have another decimal that would make it 23.55 degrees Celsius, which would split it right in the middle. While for discrete, if we had 12 cars, and then the next time we had 13 cars, there's no way for us to split this up since it has to be a whole number. It's impossible in discrete to have 12.5. So as a recap, to help remember the difference, think of continuous variables as being measurable and discrete variables as being countable. And then continuous variables can take on any value within a range, since that you can have decimals. However, with discrete variables, it's limited to specific distinct values since it has to be whole numbers.